Hi there. I'm Dean Walker. I'm the founder of a small organization on the interwebs called Living Resilience. And you may have come to know what we offer there in Living Resilience in the online community space, which is more than a website. It's actually a community space. It's a place where we offer all of our online courses, a number of events, and a number of special focus support groups. We do have a website. It's just a website, though. It's the website has become kind of a static thing these days. Ours is no exception. So I'm going to be putting all the links to all the things I'm talking about down in the show notes. You can go to the website if you'd like, look around, see what we've offered, and please do check out the online community space, the Mighty Networks space. I think there's far more aliveness there, far more possibility to connect with kindred spirits in some aspect or another of the collapse-aware or collapse-acceptant community space and the conversations that go on there. That's really the nature of this work, and certainly the nature of the podcast that we have offered now for 10 years called The Poetry of Predicament, which is, of course, a YouTube channel. And I'm putting together this little video because Karen Perry, who's been really taking over the mantle from the late Michael Dowd, and his Post Doom No Gloom website. So that's more than likely where you're connecting with this material, although I'm posting it in a number of places so that people can find out about our offerings as well. So, um, what I saw when I looked at the older material that I had with Post Doom No Gloom, I was really not surprised at all that it's really out of date and it's not particularly useful or informative. So I'm going to, as quickly as I can, offer you some detail and see if it is of interest to you. And if it is, for you to pursue more through the links in the show notes below. So the first thing I'd like to start with is the Poetry of Predicament podcast, and mention that it, like a particular central course that is now being offered in Living Resilience, the Poetry of Predicament podcast is also focusing on mental health, spiritual health, physical health, relational health in a collapsing world, in a world that is facing and um, actively involved with human-caused collapse of both Earth and human systems. So you're gonna, if you go to the Poetry of Predicament podcast, the YouTube channel, you'll find a number of interviews, really going back all 10 years. It's been sort of a central theme anyway, but now more than ever, we're really focusing on people from all walks of life, self-reporting, self-disclosing how they are facing, how they are expanding their capacity to be present in the face of what is quite obviously ever uh, accelerating and intensifying stressors in our world. So I'll put a couple of links to a couple of representative current interviews in that theme. And I hope you'll check us out if you haven't already. You can, of course, sign up for um, being kept apace of our new postings in that YouTube channel. Like every other YouTube channel, we are well served when you subscribe, when you sign up. And unlike many, many other channels, we do not monetize our YouTube presence. We don't monetize really anything. We do invite and request donations, if you will. Nothing that we offer is of solid, cost and purchase kind of a relationship. We do need to be able to cover our expenses here. We would very much appreciate any donations or ongoing subscription costs or fees that you would like to donate. And for the people who have been doing that for quite some time, we so thank you. Any donation of any amount is so much appreciated, and there it is with absolutely no judgment that we warmly invite everyone to participate to your heart's content here, whether you contribute or not. So that's a little bit of the housekeeping, the bare bones information about the Living Resilience online community space. That's again where people who are interested in our online courses or our special focused or advanced study groups, experiential study groups, um, that's where you'll find us. That's again different than our website, which is a series of more static references and resources, lists of resources, lists of suggested articles and films and videos and so on. You're certainly welcome to explore that to your heart's content as well. So I'd like to more specifically dial into how we fit in the space that I believe that Karen and Jordan and the many other people who are holding that candle flame of the Post Doom No Gloom material. And it is so beautiful what they've done. It's gorgeous. If you haven't explored, please do. I'd like to speak a little bit about how our offering, and there are many other offerings that are presented there in the Post Doom No Gloom resource pages. So please check it out and know that we are just one of many flavors that are available here, and God knows we need all the flavors we can get of support and resources and practices for people who are actively engaged in the considering of what do we do in the face of human-caused collapse of both Earth and human systems. So how living resilience is unique. I remember for years, I had known Michael Dowd for a long time, a number of years, and he and I were in touch with one another fairly often, and it was never a surprise when he would repeat his question for me. His question was, Dean, what do you do? What exactly do you do? And part of that is something that may continue forever. There may be an air of mystery around some of my work here in Living Resilience forever. But I'm hoping that some of the basic question that he's asking there, a bit tongue-in-cheek, but actually a bit of seriousness as well. And I think the short answer is that living resilience is committed to being as rich an offering as possible, calling itself the inner work of collapse. And what I'm asserting is that you hopefully are aware of the Paul Chafurka's stages of awareness model that offers a number of different dimensions, starting with the first and most basic level, going up to quite an advanced level of systems awareness of how this world is interrelationships of interrelationships. And at the beginning level, there is no interrelationship. The world is here for man to dominate. We're not interconnected with it. We're just here to use it and dominate it. You get the idea. And the same thing is true at that level with people, with other people, that there is not necessarily an inborn interrelatedness in our world at the default level, at the business as usual level. So, as a person goes through these stages of awareness, at each stage becoming more and more aware of our interrelatedness with our brethren, with our human counterparts in this world, our brothers and sisters and others. And we continue to expand our interrelatedness with the beyond human populations on the planet and the planet itself, the web of life itself, and to the ultimate oneness that at the top of the scale, I call it this. This is a little bit beyond what I've heard Paul Chafurka articulate, that at the top end is really what we might call interbeing or the oneness. There's a particular robust character in the interwebs these days, and for the past few years on YouTube, countless interviews about his voluminous body of work, is the research psychiatrist Dr. Ian McGilchrist. Dr. McGilchrist offers us a remarkable body of work that helps us to reconnect with those vitally important other aspects of this web of life from which we've disconnected. He has quite a beautiful and yet extraordinarily well researched uh, framing for what happened to get us into this disconnected space and what it might take to reconnect us to all these vitally important elements of this web of life, including ourselves. So, what I've noticed, remember, I'm just getting us to what makes this work distinct. I might mention that at each of those stages of awareness, there are different tools or different capacities or, excuse me, different practices that could be very, very useful for each of us as we move from first to the next of Chafurka's stages of awareness. So at that first step of Chafurka's stages of awareness, it could be said that though there's really not much interest for the average person who's at that low level of awareness. They might not have any agreement with or awareness of anything to do with our polycrisis, with the many existential level crises that we're facing in this world. So there, if they've just encountered a hurricane or a flood or a fire or any of the other extreme weather events and so on that are happening around the world on a very regular basis now, the best they might avail themselves of in terms of tools or practices is what we could call first aid level resilience. And at the most basic level, that's called self-regulation and co-regulation, meaning how do I bring myself back to center when something from the outer world has just whooped me upside of the head and I am knocked off center? How do I regain my center? How do I bring myself back into my body? Instead of being in shock or disassociated, how can I come back to being somewhat more aware of my actually being in a body? Not to mention that I might be with other people, people I love, and they are also traumatized. They are also knocked off center. So, self regulation, co regulation, these are the most basic skills. And they start with breath. They start with contacting our own body to perhaps bring ourselves back. I'm squeezing my thighs right now as one example of one very simple type of self-regulation, which reminds me that I am in this body through sensation, through the warmth, through the pressure, and also through my breath. So I'm just going to I'm going to slow myself down a little bit right now. I'm going to deepen my breath. This is really as simple as it gets. at the first aid level of resilience skills. And these are vitally important for anyone who's been through a recent trauma of any kind. These can actually save a person's life. And it certainly is something that can help us become more and more present in our body again. And then to be able to be of service to those we love in that traumatic situation. So, those are the most basic skills that we're involved with in this collapse of human and earth systems. This is the often most difficult and shocking way to enter the conversation. Uh, it's never a welcome thing, and it's rarely something we can predict for ourselves in our daily lives. So there's another level, and this is where most of the offerings that I'm seeing out in the world, like a, a number of the offerings that we have here in Living Resilience, this is where there might be an online support group, an online drop-in support group. So let's just say, well, let's talk about the Safe Circle group that we offer here in Living Resilience. Safe Circle is an hour and a half of drop-in style support group on Zoom every Tuesday evening in Pacific time. It's from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. And there's a certain level of um, safety, stability, regularity of that offering. And these are not therapy sessions. These are not deeply processing and trauma healing. That can't really happen easily in a drop-in style support group. So this is really for people who are in a relatively stable condition themselves, and they just don't feel safe and they don't feel connected with people in their family or their neighborhood or where they work. They seek out kindred spirits, whether it's online or in person, with whom they can just have a conversation about what's it like. Some of the more difficult emotions, for instance, to just be able to say, I'm really scared today. I'm scared about what I'm seeing in the recent election, or I'm scared of what I'm seeing in terms of the weather or the fires that have been happening recently. Or you get the idea. And it's also a place where people get a chance to just offload because we're living in a time that is perhaps the largest scale gaslighting experience, the most extreme version of cognitive dissonance that humanity has ever had to grapple with. By that, I mean we are in a situation, in my and our point of view, that is a human-caused collapse of both Earth and human systems. And none of us knows exactly what the next stage of it's going to be, but we're past the first stage. That much seems fairly obvious. And so on a daily basis, I know for myself, I experience a number of incidents of this high level gaslighting or high level cognitive dissonance, which is deeply disturbing. You know, for me, those are messages that say, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. There is nothing going on here. There's no collapse going on. That's something that might happen out in the future, and that's crazy talk, when it's actually very much currently happening, especially in places where it's a less privileged country. The USA has less of that kind of incident going on, but it's not non-existent here. But it is nothing like what may be going on in a number of countries in the global south, for instance. So a drop-in style support group is very, very important to be able to have many, many of those. You can look, it'd be great to look at the Post Doom No Gloom menu of services that are out there. There are so many drop-in style groups available from different points of view, different ways of framing what we're up against, and so on, different psychological perspectives, and so on. These we will always offer here in Living Resilience, the very basic uh, first aid level resilience skills, the very first level of what got us here. In other words, the truth about the science of climate change or about species extinction or habitat loss. These are all important kind of grounding or foundational pieces that are important to have in place. What is our intention is to provide at least that basic level of support and first level information to people, and for you to make your choices from there to see what interests you, what serves you best in the next level and the next should you decide to go on. Those levels, those advanced levels, are personally where I find the most value. When somebody chooses for themselves, yeah, I want to know more of how I can expand my capacity to be present in the face of larger and larger stressors. And how can I make sense of this world in which the media at every level, the corporate communications at every level, the oligarchic communications at every level, the military propaganda at every level is all designed to take us off center, to feed us that kind of gaslighting and cognitive dissonance breeding material, to calm us down and to have us return to just being compliant, working, functioning citizens or worker bees in this system. There's a very different level of awareness available at these more advanced stages of Paul Chafurka's stages of awareness. This is where that the answer to Michael Dowd's question, Dean, what do you do? This is where the real offering, the depth of offering comes from here in Living Resilience. It is where people gain more and more self-awareness with regard to what it takes to recover center. So if we've all we've known for our entire lives is to be saturated by those messages of there's nothing to look at here, just move on, just go back to work. Everything's going to be just fine. this this is the level where we can start to reclaim our center, reclaim our ability to discern what is actually going on, what is the human impact on various aspects of this gorgeous web of life we call home. So the good news is that these skills and practices and resources that are on offer here in those advanced stages of awareness off of Paul Chafurka's model, here in Living Resilience, those resources are available. That's the nature of our online courses, and particularly that is the work of our experiential advanced practices group. We have one called the Community of Practice. Another is really a hybrid of a course and an experiential practices group called Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. Again, all the information to be able to sign up for and join us in that course or in those special focus groups is all in the show notes below. I guess this is where I'd wrap it up, is in terms of talking to you about what makes our work unique. It's very much my experience that it is only in practices, in engaging with our bodies, with the fullness of our senses, with our awareness, with our presence, an embodied learning, an embodied expansion of capacity. That's where the work is of this time. And we often call it the inner work of collapse, this work of living resilience. So, it's not for everybody. Like Chifurka's model, where he talks about fewer and fewer people are going to engage in those higher levels of his stages of awareness. That's very much our experience here. For the people who are willing to really dive in at these more advanced levels, it takes work and it takes a commitment to becoming more and more present to where will we find our inner resources when we're faced with these extraordinary challenges. Let me take a risk of describing to you some of the more advanced practices at the highest level that we offer here in Living Resilience. These higher levels really demand a higher level of uh, deep understanding of how each of us operates in our own body, in our own lives, in our own psychology, and our own relationships. We all carry some amount of shadow. In fact, it's impossible for us to have been saturated since birth in these perverse incentives and shadow elements that have taken this global culture all the way to this cliff edge. It's impossible to be saturated for our whole lives in that and not have some within us. So there's going to be some shadow awareness to perceive directly in this uh, course environment, in the support group environment, in the advanced levels. And what I can tell you is that that's some tough work. I have been at this for my whole life, for decades, unrelated to the climate and other poly-crisis elements, really because it was the kind of work that most interested me for decades. It just happens to be extraordinarily useful now. And so I can tell you that it is tough work. It can be very, very challenging work, but it can also be the most valuable experience of healing and self-knowledge, and also the ability to hold space for others as they experience those levels. It can be one of the most fulfilling experiences in a human life. So, I'm taking a risk telling you about these higher levels because it's tough enough to get people to do the basic self-regulation and co-regulation back at step one. So I know it can sound daunting what I'm describing. With the work gets harder, deeper as it goes. But what I can also offer to you directly out of my experience, that is, it can also be the most beautiful of human to human contact and reconnection that I've ever known. It can also be an ineffable experience of reconnection with the web of life itself. I was mentioning before about Ian McGilchrist, the research psychiatrist. His way of describing this ineffable, ubiquitous, really the fabric of life behind it all, he calls it the implicit. And so I've really enjoyed his use of that, his definition of that. And whenever I'm talking about the implicit, I do this gesture from about the top of my neck down to my perineum. And this is where the implicit lives for me. It resonates from this core in my being. So it's the kind of place where if you and I were standing in silence on a cliff edge at the ocean, And it was just a silent time of watching the sunset. And it was so deeply moving and so beautiful that this implicit system would be activated, fully activated in us. And we just standing there in silence. And it's the kind of place that would start to generate being able to look over at each other in silence, and both of us being in tears without a word. That's the nature of the scale, the deep humanity, the deep beauty of the implicit. So you've now gotten more of an answer to what is it you do, Dean, than Michael Dowd ever got. Bless his heart, his extraordinary body of work. And if, again, if you happen to be watching this video as a part of your touring through Post Doom No Gloom, you already know the beauty that Michael brought, and Connie, his spouse, and now Karen, Jordan, and others taking over the flourishing of this space and this body of work. I hope to see you soon in something that we offer here in Living Resilience. And heck, you might just find yourself hanging out in the Post Doom No Gloom space for a long time. There's plenty, there's a lifetime of valuable material here. So wherever it is that you go, and whatever framing, whatever material, whatever resources or practices you choose, I wish you the best. Because, when it boils down to it, this is the most challenging conversation in human history. And this is really the time to find our people, really time to find our center, reclaim our center, or the different aspects that make up our center. And if we can be of service to you that in Living Resilience, then I look forward to meeting you. And if not, I absolutely wish you the best. Thank you.